Meta promised us that tons of games will be getting Quest 3 enhancements, and they weren't lying. I have a list of over 60 games that are said to have gotten updates already. That was originally going to be this video, but when I recorded the voiceover, I found myself saying the same thing over and over again. Higher refresh rate, higher render resolution, higher frame rate for every game. Frankly, I was boring myself. So I fired up my Quest 3, hopped into a bunch of these games, and quickly discovered that for a lot of them, the improvements don't really help all that much. No disrespect to fine games like Vacation Simulator, but you don't really notice those improvements in games where higher quality visuals don't really change the gameplay or experience all that much. Some games, regardless of how good or not good the game is, benefited more from Quest 3 updates than others. So with that said, and in no particular order, here are the top 12, because I couldn't pick 10, Quest 3 enhancements. Number 1, Genotype. Genotype is a story-based shooter where you find yourself in an abandoned station in Antarctica overrun with genetically modified creatures all trying to kill you. For a game trying to offer vibes similar to Metroid Prime and Alien Isolation, things like dynamic lighting, shadows, and overall atmosphere are really important. The game already looked pretty good on Quest 2, albeit with a liberal use of fog to reduce the draw distance and add atmosphere. With their Quest 3 patch, both games really focused on using more dynamic textures and lighting. So now instead of every room being seeped in fog, which still works because the game takes place in Antarctica, this update adds a foreboding vibe that wasn't there before. The creatures look a lot more sinister, parts of rooms are shrouded in shadows, the game actually feels creepy now. Great job from both games. Number 2, Drop Dead Dual Strike. This on-rail zombie shooter was originally ported from PCVR to Quest 1, and it shows. Very flat, low-resolution textures, all the lighting is baked into the environment. It looked like what it was, a very early standalone VR game. With Quest 3, you notice the difference in the very first scene of the game. It looked dead on like the PCVR version, and in some places even better. The PCVR version shares the same flat textures for things like the bales of hay and grass with its early Quest counterpart, but the Quest 3 things actually have volume. Along with shadows, lighting, and what appears to my eyes to be more details on the zombies themselves, it's just a much better experience now and remains one of my top recommendations for new VR users. Number 3, Drop Dead The Cabin. Existing in the same universe as Drop Dead Dual Strike, The Cabin is a co-op horror survival action game a la something like Call of Duty Zombies. When the game first launched, it honestly looked pretty close to Dual Strike if that game took place entirely at night, albeit with the cabin having neon lighting everywhere, including the zombies themselves. The Quest 3 update brought a graphical overhaul to the base game, and this is the type of fast-paced game that absolutely benefits from a bump up in refresh rate and resolution. The Cabin also introduced one of the best mixed reality experiences currently available on Meta's main store. Home invasion sees zombies invading your real-life space through doors, windows, and holes in your walls. It's one of the best examples of how mixed reality can be effectively used in gaming, and is well worth your time to check it out. Number 4, Red Matter 2. This one almost doesn't feel fair. Vertical Robot worked some incredible magic to bring Red Matter 2 to standalone. The Quest 2 version of this sci-fi adventure became the new gold standard for visual fidelity in standalone VR games, at least until this Quest 3 update hit. Seriously, the day I got my Quest 3, I played the first 30 minutes of Red Matter 2 on Quest 2, Quest 3, and PCVR back to back, and I could not tell a difference between Quest 3 and PCVR. Again, Vertical Robot are wizards. I have no idea how they did this. You really need to check it out. Visually, this game is next level. Number 5, Espire 2. The Espire games are high espionage adventures where you play, ironically, as a special agent controlling robot spies virtually. How very meta, no pun intended. Having said all that, this one is very similar to Genotype, where things like better lighting, better textures, and improved level of detail really help the overall atmosphere in the game. Also, after Drop Dead The Cabin, this is my second favorite mixed reality implementation of an existing game. In MR missions, you play as a training agent, and the game uses your environment to train you in espionage. I had low expectations when I fired this one up because I wasn't a fan of the first game, and I enjoyed it way more than I expected. Number 6, The Light Brigade. I love what Funtronic Labs did here. This is a roguelike dark fantasy shooter, and honestly, despite my general dislike of roguelites, it's still one of the best VR games of 2023. Rather than flatly redo everything, Funtronic gave us multiple graphic modes so players have more control over their experience. This is similar to how a lot of PC and PC VR games handle visual quality, but is very rarely seen on standalone. This also accounts for well-known issues with Quest 3's battery life, with a low power mode to extend your game session if you want to do that. This low power mode basically makes the game the same quality as on Quest 2. I love this, and I hope more standalone game developers choose to do this moving forward. Before I do the final 6, I want to take a minute to thank Polyarc Games, the makers of Moss and Moss Book 2, and the sponsors of this video. The Moss games are excellent VR platformers, and along with Astrobot are the gold standard for this genre of game in virtual reality. Moss Book 2 was my favorite VR game in 2022. Both games are available on Quest, PC VR, and PSVR 2. If you'd like to pick up either game on Quest for 30% off, use my code on the screen right now. I'll leave this code along with the Quest links for both games down below. Number 7, Into the Radius. When I first heard Into the Radius was being ported to Quest, I legitimately cringed. Into the Radius is a dystopian survival game with some of the creepiest enemies you'll ever find in the VR game and incredible environments that you can't help but stop and stare at least on PC VR. Seeing all that stripped down and run on Quest 2 made a great looking game into a bit of an eyesore. The Quest 3 update significantly bridges that gap. Much like Genotype, atmosphere really matters in a game like this. Number 8, Population 1. The most popular battle royale on the Quest platform dropped Quest 1 support over a year ago now, but playing on Quest 2 you would still get texture and map area pop-ins galore. Sometimes it's even applied to other players. PC VR players were clearly at an advantage. On Quest 3, most of this seems to be remedied. The game also runs at 90Hz with better resolution, almost zero pop-in, and higher quality textures. These are all the buzz phrases I stated earlier, but in a fast-paced shooter, they matter more. Standalone players can now feel like they're on a level playing field with their PC VR counterparts, as the two versions are basically identical. Number 9, The Seventh Guest. The Seventh Guest is a VR adaptation of an interactive story-based puzzle game set in a very spooky mansion. All of the characters in the game are rendered with full motion video, meaning they were volumetrically captured from real actor performances, which is really cool and gives the game a bit of style compared to most other games. Unfortunately on Quest 2, maybe this was a limitation of the software, but if there was a scene with a ton of characters, they would fade in and out like the headset couldn't handle that many on screen at once. This has changed on Quest 3 and you get full volumetric scenes now. Also, because this is primarily a puzzle game that begs you to pay attention to the finer details to solve everything, increased textures and resolutions really help you as a player. Number 10, Pistol Whip. Here's another high-paced game that absolutely benefits from a bump in quality. Pistol Whip is a fast-paced, rhythm-based shooter that, if you've only played the standalone version, you absolutely need to revisit. On Quest 3, Pistol Whip runs at an increased 90 frames per second with dynamic shadows and bloom, or glow to us common folks, along with the obligatory bump up in resolution. The added level of detail really stands out in a game like this. This sounds counterintuitive to say because it's not like you're stopping to stare at anything at a game that moves this fast, but everything feels more distinct, for lack of a better term. I found the game easier to play on Quest 3 because I could process what was in front of me faster with the enhancements. I hope that makes sense. Number 11, Golf Plus. Walkabout Mini Golf has a charming low poly style that honestly works really well for its aesthetic. I love that game. Golf Plus, on the other hand, the official VR golf game of the PGA Tour, is aiming for a more realistic golf experience. I'll let this video on the screen posted by one of the devs speak for itself. Stepping on the greens at real life courses like St. Andrews, Pebble Beach, and East Lake loses a bit of its luster when the virtual representations are, we'll say, less detailed. If you're a golf enthusiast, Golf Plus on Quest 3 is worth your time. Number 12, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 1. This update just dropped a few days ago, so I've only gotten to spend a couple of hours in it. At first, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't super impressed. That's because most recently I played the PC VR version of this game. It wasn't until I jumped back into Quest 2 and you can see the side-by-side comparisons here that things really stand out. This game was originally ported for Quest 1, and the Quest 2 is more or less running that version. For Quest 3, everything just has more detail. The rundown houses have vines and more things growing out of it. The guns all look way better. Axes and bows have scratches. There's a bunch of little things that really add to the dystopian vibe this game is going for. Like other games I mentioned on this video, atmosphere matters, and the Quest 3 adds those little details that really matter for your immersion. Also, you can get more than a small handful of zombies swarming you, something that didn't happen on Quest 1 or Quest 2 without major performance issues. If you never played this game on standalone or you just bailed because the graphics were too flat, it's worth another look. The first Saints and Sinners game is one of the best VR games ever made. It's great that Quest 3 owners can experience this now at a higher quality. I plan on digging into as many Quest 3 updates as I can. As it stands, I revisited close to 40 games in preparation for this video, including watching footage on games I don't own and talking to people who did play them to get their impressions. If you'd like to see another list of Quest 3 updates to check out, tap that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. Let me know down in the comments if you think I overlooked the game, and as always, thank you for watching.